Welcome, this is Aaron Malik from morecustomers247.com, and today's video is on the topic of AdWords keyword types. This is just an introduction to the subject, and what I've found is that there are a lot of people running AdWords campaigns who don't realize there are multiple keyword types, and even worse than that, they don't realize the importance of all of the different types. So I wanted to just give you a quick overview of the different types of keywords that you can use and where they're going to be most useful to you. So let's just jump straight into it and hope that my PowerPoint presentation does advance. There we go. It's about the fifth try to get this to work, so fingers crossed. So there are 5 different keyword types. There's broad match, modified broad match, phrase match, exact match, and negative match. Now what the hell do they all mean, you're probably asking. So let's just jump in and have a look. So the first one is obviously the most broad, which is broad match. And the way broad match works is that the keywords you enter into your campaign, these are the words that trigger the display of an ad when someone types in a search term into Google. So for example, if you use the broad match keyword, when I say keywords versus keyword phrases, I'm kind of interchangingly meaning one or more words in the same search term. Most searches these days are doing 3 to 5 words in a search, but you still get people typing 1 or 2 words. So if it was formal shoes was my broad match keyword and someone typed in formal shoes, that could potentially trigger my ad to show for formal shoes. But what it might also do is show up for things like formal footwear or evening footwear or men's dress wingtips, because all of those terms have some relevance to the words formal and or shoes. Now this is called an expanded match issue, and I'll talk more about that in just a sec. So the thing with broad match, you need to understand it's the least targeted method of keyword you can use in a campaign, and you need to watch it like a hawk. Most people whose campaigns I've had to review and repair, I've usually burnt big bucks and got poor results because they've been using broad match with no sense of control or understanding of what's involved. In all honesty, I have to blame Google for that. Although they have lots of training information up on their website, they don't really, in my opinion, go out of their way to make it to help people understand how important this is. But that's what I'm here for, to rescue you from Google. Least targeted means you've got the most opportunity to waste your money on clicks that are not relevant to your campaign, or clicks that might be relevant but aren't turning into leads and sales. And at the end of the day, that's what you should be focusing on. So the third thing, which is the expanded match. Now this comes about with these words can be interchangeable for synonyms, for example. So shoes and footwear are synonyms. They basically mean the same thing. They're just 2 different ways of saying it. Another example you might use is cats and felines, or dogs and canines. They're both synonyms. So you might say, well, so what? It's still relevant. Well, what if it's not? What if you don't sell men's dress wingtips, but it's still matched up to that term? So this is where you have this expanded match option. Now, unfortunately, this is not how a broad match used to work back in the early days, the AdWords. And Google decided to change it 4-5+ years ago. And from what I hear, it's probably mostly they just want to make more money out of people. But anyway, so the advantage of broad match is it gives you the access to the largest spectrum of keyword opportunities. In other words, if you know what you're doing, broad match is fine. And I'm talking about someone who's an AdWords professional, preferably they've been doing it for 3 or 4 or 5 years and they're sharp. If you're a beginner or even an intermediate, avoid broad match like a plague, because it has the potential to waste a lot of your money. But as I said, if you know what you're doing, broad match can be very useful in terms of helping you identify keywords that you never thought of before, okay? And sometimes the keywords you never thought of before could be even more effective and profitable than the ones you did think of, all right? So I guess my bottom line advice with broad match is bid low or not at all, unless you have great control of when it actually triggers your ads. So let's move on to the next level, which is modified broad match. Now this was introduced, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe 4 years ago by Google. I think it was probably mostly in regard to people complaining about how broad match was costing them a lot of money and causing all sorts of problems out there in the marketplace. So what they did is the difference between broad match and modified broad match is you can now put a plus symbol in front of one or more words in your keyword list. And what that plus symbol indicates to, or tells Google to do, is when someone does a search and it compares it against your keyword, if the plus symbol is in front of a word, that word has to be in the search term in order for your ad to show. So for example, we've got formal plus shoes. If someone searched for black shoes, that could trigger your ad because the word shoes was in the search phrase, and that's the word we have the plus symbol in front of. If we go to formal shoes with the plus in front of the formal, if someone searches for formal heels, that would also be potentially able to trigger your ad because the plus symbol is in front of the formal, and formal was in the search term. And then the last one is where you have the plus symbol in front of multiple words. And in all honesty, this is the one I use all the time. In fact, I don't think I've ever used one of these variations because this gives you a lot more control. So what you're telling Google is that as long as the word formal and the word shoes is in the search term, you can trigger my ad. So classic formal shoes is fine. It'll show the ad. This does give you a tighter level of targeting, which is important. But you're still open to that expanded match issue if you have words that don't have the plus symbol in front of them. So just be aware of that. If you don't sell heels of any kind, then that would be a bad choice there. Okay. One of the things I love about modified broad match, particularly when I'm starting out a new campaign or I'm setting up maybe a new ad group and I'm trying to find out what kind of keywords are relevant, is it's great for researching keywords because I can set up very quickly and easily set up a campaign that just has modified broad match keywords in it, and not a lot of them, maybe a small selection, 4, 5, 6 of them. And what it does over time, as you monitor the campaign, you can see what terms are actually being triggered by those keywords by running a search query report. That's a subject for another day. And you can then find the keywords that are actually working for you. And you can add new keywords in at a higher level of targeting, which we're going to talk about in a minute. The key to understand this is that modified broad match is infinitely more preferable as an alternative to broad match. Okay. As I said, I very, 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 very rarely use broad match at all. Modified's much better. Now the next level is phrase match. And the way phrase match works is you have quotation marks surrounding the phrase, and that means all words inside of the search, inside of the keyword are included. So whether it's just formal shoes with a quotation mark at the beginning and the end, or whether it's men's black formal shoes size 8, and that's the entire phrase, and there's a set of quotation marks around, that's all fine. What it means is all the words inside the quotation marks, in the order that they're in the quotation marks, must be in the search term, or it won't show the search term. So formal shoes is our phrase match. Then men's formal shoes will work fine because formal shoes is there. Same for, there's no negative or no reason that men's are going to cause problems. It's not in there. It's just looking for formal shoes together. In this case, black formal shoes, same again. We have the word formal next to the word shoes, and black is fine. And it doesn't even have to be a word before the phrase. It could be after it, so formal shoes sale is equally fine because it's still got the words formal and shoes next to each other. This is a much higher level of targeting again. But on the downside, for every bonus you pick up, you usually lose something else. And on the downside is you lower the keyword spectrum availability. So there's less keywords you can get access to with a phrase match set of keywords. If you look at the phrase formal shoes, how many different ways do people search for terms involving the words formal shoes? Not many. But if we just had shoes, for example, as a broad match term, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of different ways people could search for shoes. So, there's pros and cons to that. Typically with phrase match, you can afford to bid higher prices because it's safer, but the key is you have to monitor the performance. If you just chuck the keywords in, put some money on the credit card, and turn it on and walk away and come back a month later, you're going to be sadly disappointed because AdWords is not set and forget. Okay? Even I've been doing AdWords for 8 years, and there's people out there been doing it longer than me. But even at 8 years, I do not run campaigns set and forget. That is just asking for trouble because Google will very happily take every cent you waste by not having control over what's going on, by not monitoring it. Yeah, you don't have to spend tons of time. It could be an hour a week to manage your campaign, but you need to jump in and check the keywords, make sure that you're not bidding too much, or that the keywords that are converting poorly, they're turning into lower numbers or no leads and sales, get rid of them or change them or something like that. So very important. Next level up is something called exact match, and this is identified by these square brackets here, and they surround all the words in the phrase. So formal shoes as an exact match is just what it says. Whatever the words inside the square brackets, they're the only combination that will trigger your ad, and it has to be in the order that it's in. So formal shoes will only trigger, as an exact match, will only trigger when someone types in the phrase formal shoes only, nothing else. And if your exact match is men's black formal shoes size 8, then that's the only search term that will trigger the ads. So this is the tightest level of targeting. This is very powerful if you want to drill in and tackle really competitive or really highly targeted keywords. But obviously it has the lowest amount of keyword spectrum available because there's only one phrase or one word or whatever it is that's available for you. Much the same as with phrase match, you can bid as high as necessary, but you still need to monitor for ROI. So if it's just because it's an exact match keyword, doesn't mean to say it's actually going to convert and produce a positive ROI. You still have to monitor it and get rid of the stuff that doesn't work. Now, I found a diagram on Google's website. Well, actually it wasn't. I found it somewhere, but I think it's come from Google's website. And this quite nicely displays the differences between them. So you start at the broad level, which is just your formal shoes, and that could also trigger synonyms and all sorts of stuff. And some of that stuff could be completely irrelevant to you. But it gives you access to the most number of different keyword combinations that could potentially be searched for. Then we move to modified broad match, where you have the plus symbol involved, and this is one with just a single word that has a plus, or if you want to go tighter still, you put pluses in front of all of the words, and I should add, I usually always do this one. Make sure, and I saw this example, a friend of mine at a digital agency I worked at showed me a client's campaign, and he was putting the plus symbol without a space between them. You must put that space between the word. Okay, but the plus symbol has no space between it and the word. So you can't have formal, no space, plus shoes. That won't work. That's what I'm telling. And then down to phrase match, which has the quotations, and then finally exact match, which is the tightest option available. So there's a pretty big spectrum of options there for you. So let's now look at the last one, and this is perhaps the one that shows up the least. Most people aren't aware of negative keywords or negative matches, and this is potentially one of the most powerful tools you have for improving your AdWords campaign performance for a whole raft of reasons. Now, I could spend literally an hour on this subject alone. It's that important and that complicated and that powerful, and I actually do intend to do a full-on training session on this another time, but while we're here now, I'm just going to give you a quick introduction. So the way negative match is entered in is there's a hyphen or a minus symbol, whichever you prefer to call it, is the same key on the keyboard, in front of a word. And what it does is when you have a negative keyword in a campaign, if someone types in a phrase that contains the negative keywords, it does not show your ads. Now, why would you want to do that, you might ask? Well, think about our example of selling formal shoes. If you didn't sell men's formal shoes, then maybe you could think about putting men or men's in as negative keywords. So if someone types men's formal shoes or men's black formal shoes or something like that, your ad doesn't show. You don't want to show your ad to someone that it's not relevant to. Okay. Also, you can note that you can use negative matches for broad, phrase, and exact match keywords. So that's also equally powerful. Just be aware that when you have a broad match negative, that it may not use both of those in that order. It might just use formal, or it might just use shoes rather than formal and shoes. If you want to be sure with 2 or more word phrases, use phrase match. That's usually the safest bet. Okay. Why would you use a negative match, exact match? And one of the examples I can use is if you are advertising. Actually, I'll give you a real example. One of my clients is the RA, or one of my previous clients was the RAC, or Royal Auto Club of Western Australia. So I was running an AdWords campaign for them for their travel insurance product. But if you know any, I don't know if you have, maybe you've got the I think it's the AA in the US, but if you have an RAC or something like that in wherever you live, they usually sell lots of different services. So the local RAC sold travel insurance, car loans, car insurance, breakdown services, all sorts of different things. Hugely popular, hugely well-known business, been around in, I don't know, I'm guessing probably 80 plus years in Western Australia. So, everyone in the country, everyone in the state knows the name. So when I'm running a campaign for travel insurance, I didn't want people who were searching on Google for the RAC office phone number just so they could ring them about something, or if they were looking for a home loan or a car loan. I didn't want our ads to show for that because that was wasting the budget we had available. So in that scenario, I was able to put RAC in there as a negative keyword. So if someone typed in RAC just by itself because they knew that was going to get them straight to the RAC website and they could pull a phone number off the site, then in this case I was able to stop our ads showing. So our ads were only going to show when someone typed in travel insurance or RAC travel insurance, something like that. So it can be very powerful. It stops wastage by limiting your ads showing up for non-relevant terms, and I've given you some examples there. But the other thing it also does is it also stops your keywords that are poor converting keywords. So, you might have a campaign with 1,000 keywords in, but if you look at the old 80-20 rule, the chances are that less than 20% of the keywords in the campaign are going to produce any results, let alone be profitable. So you can also block your AdWords campaign from showing your ads for keywords that aren't profitable, even if they are relevant. Another thing also is every time your ad shows, it adds a count to the impression number for that keyword and for that ad. And the more impressions you get for the less clicks, the lower your click-through rate, or CTR, is, and that impacts on your bid prices. So if your CTRs are low, your bid prices go up. If your CTRs are low, your ads tend to move from up high on the page down to the lower end of the page, maybe even off page 1 onto page 2. And when that happens, you lose the opportunity to have people see your ads and click on them, which is generally not the point. Okay, so there's a variety of reasons why negative match is really useful. So that is it. If you have any questions and you're watching this video on the morecustomers247.com website, just go down to the bottom of the page to the comments section and put in a question, and I'll do my best to answer it for you as soon as possible. If you're watching this video on YouTube or somewhere like that, usually the YouTube will give you the opportunity to put comments there down below, and you can post a question there. I'll try and get back to you. It won't be as quick on YouTube, but I'll do my best to get back to you. So hopefully this was helpful for you. Just gave you a few ideas on how you can be more creative with your campaigns and improve or reduce wastage and improve return on investment. And keywords are a very, very powerful part of that. Thanks for watching and have a great day. I'll catch you in another video.